You know the man. Watch him for 10 minutes on a Saturday and you'll see it. Water heater goes out, he's already got YouTube pulled up on the phone and a wrench in his hand. Kid needs the college essay looked at, he's reading it out loud to himself, working through it. New job wants him to learn some software he's never touched. He doesn't sign up for a class, he opens it. He clicks around, he breaks it, he figures it out by dinner. That's Franklin talking, by the way. And what you just watched isn't a personality trait. That's a whole learning system that got installed in Black Gen X men so early and so deep, they don't even know it's a system. They think it's just them. Today we're pulling the wiring out of the wall and looking at it, where it came from, why it works, and the one place it quietly costs him something. Start with the behavior, because the behavior is the tell. A man in his 50s gets handed a problem he's never seen before. Watch what he does. He doesn't ask for the manual. He doesn't call somebody. He doesn't sign up for the workshop. He picks it up and starts moving it around in his hands. He tries something. It doesn't work. He tries something else. Now he's talking to himself a little bit. Now he's got the thing halfway apart on the kitchen table and his wife is walking past like, "You sure about that?" And he goes, "I got it." And 9 times out of 10, he does got it. There's actually a name for this in the research. David Kolb, back in 1984, laid out what he called experiential learning theory. 4 stages. You have the concrete experience, you reflect on it, you build a rough theory of what's going on, you test that theory by trying it again. Then the cycle starts over. Kolb even named a specific style of learner who lives inside that loop. He called them accommodators. Concrete experience plus active experimentation. People who prefer to solve problems by doing the thing and adjusting on the fly. People who trust their hands more than the instructions. Read that description to a Black Gen X man and he'll tell you, yeah, that's me. What about it? Like it's obvious. Like everybody's like that. Everybody's not like that. That's the whole point. So the question is, how did this get so hardwired into one specific group of men? And this is where it gets interesting, because the easy answer isn't the real answer. The easy answer is the one you've heard 1,000 times. The tired story about who wasn't home, who wasn't around. We're skipping that story today. And we're skipping it because the numbers don't back it up. CDC data reported through the Hechinger report actually found that among fathers who don't live with their child, Black fathers are the most engaged group, more likely than white or Hispanic non-resident fathers to see their kids on a regular basis. So he had to teach himself because nobody was there line, that's not the mechanism. Something else was going on. Here's what was actually going on. You had a wave of families where both parents were working hard, and the economics of the late 70s and early 80s meant the kid was going to have a stretch of the afternoon on his own. Not because anybody didn't love him, because the rent was the rent. Mom might be pulling a double, dad might be on second shift or driving somewhere for work, and the 8-year-old boy is home with a peanut butter sandwich and a television and about 3 hours to fill before somebody walks through that door. Now what does that 8-year-old do? He doesn't sit still. Nobody sits still for 3 hours at 8 years old. He gets curious. The lamp isn't working. He unscrews the bulb. The bike chain came off. He flips the bike upside down and works it back on with a stick. The VCR is blinking 12. He pushes buttons until it stops. He is running Kolb's 4-stage cycle in his living room, in a Fruit of the Loom t-shirt with grape jelly on his chin. Concrete experience, reflection, rough theory. Test it again. He doesn't know he's doing it. He just knows the lamp works now. Multiply that by 1,000 afternoons across 10 years, and you don't have a kid anymore. You have an operating system. And here's where the second layer comes in, because the empty afternoons were only part of it. There was also what was expected of him when the adults were around. The research calls this the tough black man schema. There's a peer-reviewed paper by Drexler James, published in 2024 in the journal Men and Masculinities that lays it out. Physical strength, emotional restriction, resilience, self-reliance. A measurable set of expectations that gets communicated to black boys and men, sometimes with words, mostly without. Handle it. Don't cry about it. Work it out. So now you've got a kid who's already teaching himself things 3 hours a day out of pure necessity, and the messaging he's getting from the men around him, uncles, older cousins, coaches, the man at the corner store, is pointing at the exact same skill. Don't come running. Don't complain. Sit with it and work it out. The behavior and the value system are pointing the same direction. That's how you build something that lasts 50 years. Fast forward. That kid is 48 now. He's got a house. He's got a job that keeps changing on him. New software every 18 months. New procedures. New bosses who are 10 years younger than him talking about upskilling. And he is fine. He is more than fine. Because while other people are panicking about the learning curve, this man has been learning on a curve his entire life. That's his native environment. Hand him a manual and he'll set it down. Hand him the actual thing and step back. You ever watched a Gen X man learn a new phone? He doesn't read a single word. He just starts pressing stuff, opens every app once, closes it, goes into settings, a place a lot of people are scared of, and starts flipping switches to see what happens. 2 days later, he's teaching his mama how to use hers. Same man at work. New inventory system rolls out. Whole team is stressed. They've got a 3-day training scheduled. He shows up to the training already knowing half of it because he went in over the weekend and clicked around. His boss thinks he's a genius. He's not a genius. He's running the same loop he was running with the busted VCR in 1984. He never turned it off. And this shows up in parenting too. Watch a black Gen X dad with a small child in something that needs fixing. He is not going to sit that kid on the couch and explain the concept of a screwdriver. He's going to hand the kid the screwdriver. Hold this. No, like this. Turn it. Other way. There you go. The kid learns the way he learned. Hands-on. A little bit of trial and error. No PowerPoint. Kolb would recognize it immediately. So would every black man who ever spent a Saturday under a car next to his own father, being told to hand me the 10mm without ever being told what a 10mm was. You worked out which one was the 10mm by handing him the wrong one twice and getting the look. Before I keep going, I've been working on something on the side, a book called Psychology of Black Gen X Men. It gets into the stuff that got wired into you young and what it's doing to you now, the patterns you can't quite explain about yourself. Links in the description if you want to look. And to everyone watching and sharing this stuff, genuinely, thank you. Now here is where we've got to be honest with each other, because this same operating system that makes the man so competent also has a cost. And the research on this is specific, and it's about him. There's a study out of the University of Michigan, Goodwill and colleagues, on young black men. They found that self-reliance as a masculine norm was associated with higher rates of depressive symptoms. The researchers pointed out something important, that emotional control can actually be protective in the short term, especially in the context of dealing with racial discrimination out in the world. You can't fall apart at work. You can't fall apart at the traffic stop. You can't fall apart at the meeting. The armor keeps you functional. But the armor doesn't come off when you get home. It stays on. And over years, that costs something. Then there's an older study, 2012, Hammond and colleagues, that broke it down by age. And they found something interesting. In African American men aged 18 to 29, and again in men 40 and older, self-reliance was actually associated with fewer depressive symptoms. It was working for them. But, and this is the part to sit with, they also found that restrictive emotionality, the don't talk about it, don't show it part, made the connection between everyday racial discrimination and depression worse for men over 30. Right in the window black Gen X men were sitting in. So the work it out yourself part was helping. The don't ever say how you feel about it part was doing damage. And a more recent write-up out of Stanford, covered in the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, looked at what they call racialized masculinity. The specific pressure on black men to be stoic, to be self-reliant, to never appear to need, and found it increases help-seeking stigma. Meaning, the same man who will teach himself to rewire a light fixture from a 9-minute video will not, under any circumstances, call somebody about the fact that he hasn't slept right in 6 months. He'll YouTube the light fixture. He will not Google the insomnia. There's a paper from 2024, Coleman, Karumba and colleagues, that connects this directly. Masculine norms of self-reliance, restrictive emotionality, and stoicism are linked to lower rates of mental health care seeking among black American men. You see the split? The learning by doing engine is beautiful when the problem is a carburetor. It's a problem when the problem is inside his chest. And a lot of black Gen X men are running into that split right now in their late 40s and 50s because the body starts sending mail, the mind starts sending mail, the marriage starts sending mail. And the same skill that let him rebuild a lawnmower engine off a paper diagram in 1994 does not translate to sitting across from another human being and saying, "I'm not okay." That's a whole different learning cycle, and nobody handed him the busted version of that when he was 8 so he could take it apart on the living room floor. Here's the part that doesn't get said enough, though. The doing it himself thing is a superpower. It's the reason he owns what he owns. It's the reason his kids know how to do things their friends can't do. It's the reason he can walk into any situation and within about 90 seconds have a rough plan. That is earned. Nobody's asking him to give that up. What the research is actually pointing at is narrower than that. It's saying the restrictive emotionality piece, the specific part where he doesn't have words for what's happening inside him, or he has the words and won't use them. That's the piece with the price tag. That's the one worth looking at. And here's the thing about a man who learned everything by doing. He can learn this too. That's the whole point of the operating system. You give him the concrete experience, he'll run the cycle, he'll try something, it won't work, he'll adjust, he'll try again. The same brain that worked out the transmission can work out how to tell his wife what he's actually thinking. It's a system he hasn't practiced yet. The muscle exists, it just hasn't been pointed that direction. Think about what that means for a second. Every black Gen X man watching this has, sitting inside him, the exact learning apparatus he needs to work on the one area he's been avoiding. He doesn't need to become somebody else. He doesn't need to go to a weekend retreat and cry in a circle. He just needs to apply the tool he already owns to a room in the house he's never gone into. Try something small, see what happens, adjust, try again next week. That's it. That's the whole thing. It's cold cycle running on a different problem. There's something almost funny about it, honestly. The man who taught himself to lay tile, taught himself to run a small business on the side, taught himself to cook after his mama passed because somebody had to. Telling that man he can't learn to talk about his feelings is like telling water it can't be wet. Of course he can. He's never been asked to. And most of the messaging he got growing up told him to keep quiet. One more thing on the parenting side, because this matters. The way this generation of men learned, hands-on, in motion, by trying, is now getting passed down, whether they mean to or not. Their kids are watching, and what those kids are picking up is enormous. They're picking up that you don't panic when something breaks. They're picking up that not knowing how to do something is a temporary condition, not an identity. They're picking up that reading the manual is optional and instinct is real. These are gifts, actual measurable gifts in a world where a lot of young people freeze when the Wi-Fi goes out. But those same kids are also picking up what dad doesn't do. They notice when he doesn't say the thing. They notice when he goes quiet after a hard day and heads to the garage. And the gift and the gap get passed along together in the same box. You can't hand somebody one without the other unless you decide to. So this is where we land. The man who learns everything by doing built himself in real time out of a childhood full of empty afternoons and expectations of toughness and a natural curiosity that never got shut down. He runs a learning cycle that a Harvard-trained researcher named and studied and published papers about, and he runs it without ever having heard the researcher's name. That's a whole way of being in the world, and it works. The only thing worth adding to it, at this stage of the game, is turning that same engine toward the one room he hasn't gone in yet. Not because anybody's making him, because he can. Because the tool has always been in his hand. He just never thought to point it that direction. And if he does, if he tries something, adjusts, tries again, everybody in his house is going to feel it. His wife, his kids, his own body sleeping a little better. That's the return on the investment. That's the compound interest on 50 years of working things out. One more piece before I let you go, because it's the one that connects everything. The man we just described, the one running Kolb's cycle in his garage without knowing Kolb's name, he's also raising, or has already raised, a generation of kids who watch them do it. And those kids, the millennials and the Gen Z ones, they learn differently. They Google, they ask, they post a question in a group chat. They watch a tutorial before they touch the thing. And a lot of black Gen X dads look at that and shake their head like, just do it, just try it. Because to him, Watching a 9-minute video before you pick up the wrench is a delay. To the kid, it's a warm-up. Neither one's wrong, but here's what's interesting. The kid who Googles first and the dad who tries first, if they got in a garage together and actually worked on something as a team, they'd fill in each other's blind spots inside an hour. The dad would learn there's no shame in checking before you swing. The kid would learn there's a point where you have to stop watching and put your hands on it. That's a real conversation a lot of these households could be having and aren't, because both sides think their way is the way. He was always the man who could learn. He was just never told this was something he was allowed to learn. Big difference. Quick thing before I go. Psychology of Black Gen X men came out of doing this channel and realizing all these topics connect into one bigger story about how you got built. So to everyone who was able to get it, or anyone thinking about it, thank you for supporting the channel. Genuinely. It's in the description if you want to check it out. Alright now, the video on the screen, start there.